Amsterdam lies at the northern edge of the Randstad, one of Europe's largest conurbations, which stretches down to Rotterdam in the south and is home to something like 6 or 7 million people, which is about a third of the country's entire population. So while the journey from Delft does include some green bits, you're never far away from a house or a factory or a block of offices.
Amsterdam Centraal is het eindpunt van deze trein.
The central station is actually a very good place to start your visit to Amsterdam, as the old city fans out from here. Because this is Holland, the station is actually built on an artificial island in the bay. There simply wasn't room anywhere else. Depending on who you ask, it has between 0.7 and 1.4 million inhabitants and is the country's largest city. Technically, it's also the capital, even though the seat of government is in The Hague. It began as a 12th century fishing village, but by the 17th century it was the richest city in the world. It's now home to 7 of the world's top 500 companies and to one of the few things that cyclists in the Netherlands will willingly give way to. It also has canals, earning it the title of Venice of the North, a title incidentally it shares with Copenhagen, Hamburg, St. Petersburg, Stockholm and many others. There are 1,000 kilometers, 600 miles of canal, 90 islands and 1,500 bridges, but here it's actually worth taking a boat. The canals were dug in the 17th century in a series of concentric half-circles known as the canal girdle, but the eastern part was never fully completed. One word you will hear frequently in Amsterdam is the Dutch for canal, gracht. Today they have lost their significance for serious transport, but are one of Amsterdam's biggest tourist attractions. Houses built on the canals were taxed according to their width. Consequently, they were built as narrow as possible. This meant trouble for anyone trying to get furniture up staircases, hence the hooks attached to the decorative gables. Very wide houses belonged to the very rich, but if your budget is a lot more limited, you can go for a less conventional option. Canals are an obvious hazard when parking your car, and in the 1960s the city had to install guardrails. Even so, between them, citizens and visitors managed to drive an average of 1 car a week into the water. The Netherlands, built largely on water, have a noble seafaring tradition. But it's rather odd that the ancient ship Amsterdam chose to build a replica of to celebrate this tradition was one that sank on its maiden voyage. More than 3.5 million visitors a year come to Amsterdam, and the city isn't too proud to live up to its own stereotype. But it is certainly true that the Netherlands are very proud of their tolerant attitudes towards drugs and sexuality. Of course, a more highbrow culture is also important to the city, but if you're going to visit the Van Gogh Museum or the Rijksmuseum or the Rembrandt House, you need to plan an extra day. It is though interesting to see what Amsterdam considers worthy of a museum. The sex industry, with its red light districts, is also important to the city, as it traditionally is for any large port. So important that the Chamber of Commerce is actually worried that prostitution is on the decline. The most famous red light district is centred in the oldest part, around the old church. Consecrated in 1306, it's the only building that remains unchanged since Rembrandt's time. Now, you're probably hoping for some footage of some of the people who work in this particular area, but the fact of the matter is that it's not necessarily a very good idea to point your camera at them, especially when their bosses are milling around. So instead, I'm afraid that you'll just have to make do with this artist's impression. As you can see, you're not really missing a great deal. Back to the video. The Netherlands had at one time many colonies abroad and consequently in modern times a fair amount of immigration, mostly from Indonesia. Perhaps it's this vague connection with Asia that led to the construction of Sea Palace, a floating Chinese restaurant, a copy of a much larger one in Hong Kong that can seat 5,000. But what surprised us was that Amsterdam actually has a Chinatown. It's not exactly San Francisco, it consists basically just of one street, Zeedijk, but it has most of the trappings that you might expect from something that might call itself Chinatown. It even has one of Europe's largest Buddhist temples, which I wasn't allowed to film inside of. Zeedijk ends at the New Market, which includes the Waag, the Weigh House. Originally it was a gate in the city fortifications where goods were weighed and taxed. The 19th century St. Nicholas's Church stands near another of the last remnants of the original 15th century fortifications, the Weeper's Tower, from which seafarers' wives could wave goodbye. It's the small building that looks like a witch's hat. We didn't see much of the Royal Palace. Not only was it covered in scaffolding, there was a fun fair in front of it. Nearby is the new church, although new is relative. Construction began in 1385. Opposite is the National Monument, which commemorates the city's victims of World War II, the most famous of these being Anne Frank. The flower market reflects the country's importance as an exporter of flowers. The Mint Tower is the third and final remnant of the old city wall, but built late in its history. The old Jewish quarter is now gone, replaced by a modern development which includes the City Hall and Music Theatre. The 17th century Renaissance-style South Church, the subject of a famous painting by Monet. Amsterdam is a world-class city with lots to offer, more than can be seen in a single day. But we had to get the train back to Delft, have a bite to eat, and get in a good night's sleep.